Let's cross now to Windhoek, where Heike Smith of IJG Securities is standing by to tell us more about Namibia's inflation figures that were released yesterday. Heike, hi, can you hear me? It's Mandla from the Johannesburg studios. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you very much for having Namibia on again. And you said something about Namibian inflation just now. Indeed, yes. Inflation figure came in yesterday at 6.7% year-on-year for November. That means a 0.2% month-on-month increase for November. And incidentally, this is down from 7.1% in October of this year. Inflation was also mainly driven by the food and alcoholic beverages sector in the basket, which makes up just under 30% of the Namibian basket, which showed a decline of 0.1% month-on-month. And I think to maybe also end the year off on a high note in terms of inflation in Namibia, just to highlight what inflation has done last year in November, that was 11.7%, so quite a drastic move downwards.
Is this trend likely to continue into December and even beginning of 2010?
We'd expect a slight downward trend going forward for the next couple of months. However, towards the end of the first quarter and the middle of the year, we'd rather expect inflation to tick up again.
And what could be the threats to inflation?
The main threats to Namibian inflation, very similar to other countries worldwide, is a threat in the oil price, which we expect to move upwards as the worldwide recession continues to fizzle out. And then obviously, forever, there are exchange rate implications. As you all know, the rand US dollar and also the Namibian dollar US dollar exchange rate is very volatile, and that could add quite a bit to the inflation pressure.
Is the Bank of Namibia then likely to continue to keeping the repo rate unchanged?
We'd expect the Bank of Namibia to keep the bank rate here in Namibia unchanged at the current level, and only once we see an upward movement drastically in inflation and also deterioration of other indicators that is being watched by the Bank of Namibia do we expect an increase in the bank rate. That, however, we don't expect before the end of next year.
Now, some of the figures that came out as well are the vehicle sales figures. Take us through those figures.
Right, in terms of vehicle sales, we've seen quite an off month for November. On a month-on-month basis, it's down around 25%. October was a tremendously good month in terms of vehicle sales, and that we've seen in the preceding years. While also very much similar to previous years and previous months, most of the vehicle sales have been driven by commercial vehicle sales, as we think it's still a bit easier for companies to either finance vehicles themselves or to obtain the credit from banks. Incidentally, leading on to that, recently we also had private sector credit extension figures out for Namibia, and those have also indicated that the majority of credit extended to the private sector was actually made to businesses and not to individuals.
But then the commercial figures, sales figures for November have decreased by 30% month on month and 10% year on year to 546 units.
That is quite correct, but also for the month of November, you'd see that commercial vehicle sales made up about 66% of total vehicle sales. So that still kept total vehicle sales a bit higher than private vehicle sales, although the slowdown wasn't as marked on a month-on-month basis for the private sector vehicle sales.
So we shouldn't necessarily be a bit concerned about economic activity at this point in time?
That is something that wouldn't worry me that much at the moment. I think that also links in very much to what Fitch Ratings has said in the note they published when they said that Namibia's outlook is stable. That was published on Friday last week. And they also indicated that Namibia showed quite a muted response to what's been happening globally in terms of the recession as well. They also believe Namibia, to a large extent, and we do agree with that as well, has been cushioned, although we can expect GDP growth or a decline in GDP of 1% for the current financial year, mainly on the back of a much weaker minerals sector, and that of course is mainly driven by diamonds in Namibia.
That was Heike Smith, Head of Research at IJG Namibia.